My first question was about introducing the objective of your work with Dirk and other experts with this great report. We have already published an article on our website, a short article on our website about it. And I would come back to the objective of this great work. And my question was, if you remind me, well, what are FAO's point of attention for the future regarding fruits and vegetables? And actually, why was it important in 2021 to draw attention to such category? What are the main issues? What are your main objectives with such communication? Rosa.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, we know that fruits and vegetables are very rich sources of vitamins, minerals, and dietary fiber, and also rich sources of beneficial phytochemical compounds like antioxidants, for example. However, today, the level of consumption of fruits and vegetables is below what is expected. FAO and the World Health Organization recommend the consumption of at least 400 grams of fruit and vegetables per day by adults as a measure to prevent chronic diseases like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and obesity, and also to address micronutrient deficiencies. But as I highlighted earlier, the levels of intake of fruit and vegetable consumption globally fall short of these recommended daily intake. And you do have a wide variation in the quantities consumed across and within countries. And in fact, last year, FAO published the State of Food Insecurity, which highlighted that on average, the availability of fruits and vegetables across the globe in 2017 was actually slightly below the recommended intake. So the recommended intake is 400 grams per capita per day, and we found the global average of 390 grams per capita per day. And these numbers actually consider the production numbers actually considered the anticipated or the average levels of loss and waste in the supply chains. The only region of the globe that was producing above, a little bit above average in terms of fruit and vegetable production was the Asia Pacific region, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone in that region is consuming the recommended quantities. The other issues that we also need to address, those of the chemical and the microbiological risks to fruits and vegetables that can take place at every step of the production to consumption chain, so assuring food safety, reducing health risks to consumers are concerns, and then also the high levels of loss and waste in fruits and vegetables, and that impacts also on the efficiency of the supply chains, and with negative also economic and social impacts. So this is the background against which the International Year of Fruits and Vegetables was requested by Chile to FAO's governing bodies. It was discussed in all of the various governing bodies, and then it was approved and taken to the UN General Assembly. And following on that, the resolution was adopted. And again, against that background, we have really actually 4 major areas to be addressed in this context of the International Year. First, the importance of awareness, to raise awareness of the nutrition and health benefits of fruits and vegetable consumption. also to advocate for healthy diets through the increased consumption of fruits and vegetables, and to promote international efforts to boost the sustainable production of fruits and vegetables. Because one of the things that you see happening quite a bit is the high use of chemicals in fruit and vegetable production, which pose food safety risks, and also to apply innovative approaches and technologies to maintain the quality of fruit, assure its safety, and reduce losses and waste in fruit and vegetable supply chains from production to consumption. So these are the four major areas that are being addressed in the context or highlighted, because there are other areas around those, but these are the four highlights of the resolution, the UNGA resolution that was adopted in December 2019 toward the introduction of the observation or celebration of the International Year of Fruits and Vegetables.
That's pretty clear, but I have some additional question for you, Rosa.
Yes.
In your analysis, have you observed global trends in decreasing the level of fruit and vegetable consumption or increasing in the last few years? Maybe it can also engage you in this process of highlighting the awareness about fruit and vegetable. So did you observe such decrease or increasing of fruit and vegetables in some region of the world, or maybe in some specific population? I mean, for example, in children or millennials, I don't know, whatever. Can you give some comments about this?
I think what you see is with awareness. This is what we found when we worked in different regions of the globe. You find that in the more developed countries, you find better fruit consumption, increase in fruit consumption. In a lot of the developing countries, what you find is that when people are educated, this is when the level of fruit and vegetable consumption increases. So what we were saying, for example, having worked in Asia, this is one of the things that we had talked about quite a bit, because I work to a large extent with stakeholders, and one of the problems that the governments have was seeing and was asking us also as FAO to promote the consumption of fruits and vegetables, because people, when they move from, let's say, their staple food diets, in Asia it was always referred to as the simple plate, which is rice as a major staple with something else, but not very much else, to a more diversified diet. The first thing that they will do as soon as incomes rise is to eat more meat. And then only the more educated people would actually increase their fruit and vegetable consumption.
Okay, so even if the fruit and vegetable accessibility is high, education still remains the key message. Okay.
Yes, to get people to consume the levels that are required to really benefit them, in terms of micronutrients that are required, and so on.
Okay, that's great. Dirk, have you any comments to add, or we can go further with you with the second question?
Sure, I think we can move ahead. I think Rosa has explained it very well in quite some detail. So maybe later, if there are additional questions, we can return to the topic, but perhaps we can proceed with the next one.
Great. So my second question was the quality of fruits and vegetables is associated with subjective criteria. in the customer perception, as your report has demonstrated. How do you explain this finding and how to remove this obstacle, in particular in favor of reducing food waste?
Right. Okay. So food quality, just to start off with a bit of a definition of the term, describes the attributes or the characteristics that make a food attractive to a buyer or consumer. Now, keeping that in mind, the perception of quality has somewhat changed historically. In the past, and this is quite some time ago, 100 or more years ago, it was primarily understood as the absence of defects or fraud or adulteration. Now, this has now changed because most countries now have food control systems in place that ensure that the consumer no longer has these sort of criteria in the forefront of their mind when they go shopping and make a purchase. This is something that we've been working on a lot to strengthen the food control in all countries around the world, but in particular of those who still have to catch up a little bit in terms of ensuring the safety and quality of produce that goes to the market, so that the consumer does not have to worry anymore about these sort of, let's say, negative criteria. Mm-hmm. Now, nowadays, a consumer, of course, look for other quality criteria because they take those as almost as granted, at least in a lot of countries. So, for example, consumers look at the appearance of a fruit or a vegetable, the size, the form, the color, the sensory properties. How does it taste? What's the aroma, the texture? Is it crispy or soft? Things like that. Nutritional value, convenience. But also, I think what is important is they look for sometimes the type of production, the way a food is produced. Rosa alluded to that. And that can also extend to things such as testing, to ensure that a batch of fruits is tested for pesticide residues, for example, to ensure that the consumer is being presented with a product that is safe for consumption. Now, that said, quality has become a little bit more of a subjective matter. It is really the expectation of the consumer and how he or she perceives the product to meet those expectations. And because consumers around the world have different expectations, depending on their upbringing, on their culture, the country they come from, and basically what the environment that they are used to. So their preferred expectations of quality will vary. And another aspect, of course, that's quite important is it, of course, the purchasing power. I mean, fruits and vegetables tend to be either, particularly in developing countries, picked from the backyard if you still have a tree, or if you don't and live in an urban environment, it's very difficult because they are quite expensive. The expense is something that can limit the access to certain fruits and vegetables. So it is also an important factor, but it always is reflected also in the quality. The higher the quality, the higher the price will be. I can give you an example of that subjectivity from my own family. So my wife and I, we grew up in different countries, neighboring countries, and we both love papayas. It's one of those delicious tropical fruits. Now, my wife prefers the papayas firm and a little bit crispier in the texture, while I prefer it a little bit more ripe and a little bit softer so I can chew it out. She prefers the orange fleshed variety, while I prefer the pink fleshed variety. But that's to say we do have very different expectations of quality. Yes, what is a good quality papaya? But in the end, it's a subjective matter. It's neither one of us is right or wrong. And in a sense, we are also changing our perceptions a little bit around the others. Perceptions and expectations of quality. So I'd sometimes try the way she likes them and vice versa. So it really depends on the individual and in particular the upbringing that you had. So another factor is, of course, the price. And I already mentioned that previously. It is a limiting factor sometimes when it comes to quality produce. Now, what can we do to overcome that obstacle? Okay, so this, in my opinion, goes back to education, to raising awareness.